She walked into a colonial courtroom to marry the man who once owned her. In 1823, on a French Caribbean island, a woman did something that shocked an entire colony. She walked into a courtroom and asked for permission to marry the man who had once owned her as property, not for money, not for protection, not because she had nowhere else to go. She said she loved him, and he said he loved her. In a world where slavery was still legal, where race defined status, and where interracial marriage threatened the social order, this request was not just personal. It was political. It forced judges, planners, and officials to confront a dangerous question. If freedom is real, does it include the right to choose who you marry? This is the story of Elise Laurent and Henri Beaumont. Martinique in the 1820s was a colony built on sugar and hierarchy. Plantations covered the hills. Enslaved Africans labored in fields and houses. White families controlled land, wealth, and law. Society operated on strict racial lines that everyone understood, even if no one spoke them aloud. Henri Beaumont inherited his family's plantation at 28. He had studied in France and returned believing himself to be enlightened. He reduced certain punishments and allowed more religious instruction for the enslaved workers. He liked to think he was kinder than other planters. Elise was born on the plantation. She worked inside the main house as a domestic servant. Unlike most enslaved women, she learned to read and write basic French from an older tutor who taught secretly at night. Her intelligence did not go unnoticed. Henri first truly saw her when his mother struggled to read a newspaper from Paris. Elise stepped forward and read it clearly. Henri was surprised. He began asking her about politics, about France, about the debates he had heard in university halls regarding slavery and reform. Their conversations began as curiosity. They slowly became something deeper. Henri found in Elise an intellect that challenged him. Elise found in Henri a contradiction. He spoke of human dignity while living in a system that denied it to her. Their connection grew carefully. There were no dramatic confessions at first. There were long discussions in quiet corners of the veranda, late evenings where philosophy replaced command. Elise remained cautious. She understood the imbalance between them. She knew affection in such a world could become dangerous quickly. Whispers eventually began among servants and neighbors. A white planter spending too much time speaking with an enslaved woman was noticed. Henry's relatives warned him discreetly. He dismissed them at first. He believed his education made him different. One evening, during a conversation about abolition debates in Paris, Henri said something impulsive. If the law changes, he told her, everything will be different. Elise responded calmly. The law is not the only thing that must change. That sentence unsettled him. It forced him to see the truth. As long as she was enslaved, any relationship between them existed inside ownership. Months later, Henri made a decision that shocked his family. He freed her. The manumission papers were signed legally in 1822. Elise was no longer property under colonial law. She was a free woman of color, a status that carried limited rights and heavy scrutiny. She could own property. She could work independently. But she still faced restrictions based on race. Henri believed that once she was free, marriage would be possible. He underestimated the resistance of the colonial system. When he approached authorities to request marriage authorization, officials refused immediately. They argued that interracial marriage threatened public order. They warned that approving such a union would blur racial boundaries and weaken white authority. They advised him to reconsider for the sake of his family's reputation. Henry's relatives were furious. They threatened to cut him off financially. Business partners distanced themselves. Invitations stopped arriving. Elise listened quietly as Henri relayed the rejection. She was not surprised, but she did not retreat. Instead, she chose a path no one expected. She filed a petition with the colonial court. The idea of a formerly enslaved woman challenging the legal system publicly was extraordinary. Word spread quickly. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was filled. Planters attended out of curiosity. Free people of color attended out of hope. Elise stood before the judge without trembling. She did not dramatize her case. She did not beg for sympathy. She spoke clearly and deliberately. I was born enslaved, she said, but I am now recognized as free under French law. If my freedom is real, it must include the right to choose my husband. Henri confirmed that he wished to marry her voluntarily. He insisted there was no coercion, no manipulation. He declares affection openly. The arguments against him were harsh but predictable. Colonial lawyers warned that such a marriage would cause confusion in racial hierarchy. They claimed it would encourage others and destabilize society. They implied that Henry's judgment was clouded. Elise responded with reason. "If my freedom ends where your fear begins," she said, "then it is not freedom at all." The judge delayed the ruling for weeks. Pressure mounted from powerful families. Letters were sent to officials in France. The colony watched closely. When the verdict came, it was cautious and political. The court denied the marriage request. The official explanation stated that although Elise was legally free, the union would disturb social harmony. The law remained unchanged. Henri faced a final decision. He could retreat, protect his status, and marry within his class. Or he could remain beside Elise without legal recognition. He chose to stay. They could not marry under colonial law, but Henri transferred property into her name. He publicly acknowledged their relationship despite social isolation. Business ties weakened. Invitations vanished. Elise used her new independence to teach literacy to free black children. She built respect not through scandal, but through service. She became known not simply as Henry's companion, but as a woman who stood before a court and demanded dignity. Their love did not overturn the law in 1823, but it exposed its weakness. When slavery was finally abolished in French colonies in 1848, a new generation remembered Elise's words. They remembered that before emancipation came, someone had already questioned what freedom truly meant. This story matters because it moves beyond secret meetings in the dark. It brings love into the light of law and forces power to respond. Elise was once owned. She could have accepted quiet dependence. Instead, she demanded equality publicly. Henri believed freeing her was the ultimate act. Elise proved that freedom without equality is incomplete. Their marriage was denied, but their challenge remained. And sometimes, the most powerful rebellion is not an uprising in the streets, but a woman standing in a courtroom asking a simple question the system cannot comfortably answer. If she is free, why can she not choose? Subscribe to our channel for more of these historic stories.